Welcome to the Blessed Podcast, where we join Jesus where he is already at work. We dream of the day when every home in America is adopted by one or more persons living the prayer, care, and shared lifestyle. Your host is Gary Kendall, catalyst for Love KC and the National Prayer Mobilizer for BlessEveryHome.com. Gary works with founder Chris Cooper and the team at BlessEveryHome.com to equip you to live on mission where you live, learn, work, and play. If you haven't yet signed up to adopt your neighborhood, you can do so at BlessEveryHome.com. Now, let's turn our attention to this episode of the Blessed Podcast.
Well, I want to welcome you to the Bless Podcast, where we join Jesus where he's already at work, where we live, learn, work, and play. And each time we meet on the podcast, we feature a guest who's actually living out what we just advocated. And today, it's a pleasure to welcome Solomon Dabe. Solomon, welcome. So glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
I'm so looking forward to this.
Thanks.
Solomon and his wife, Tigst, recently stepped out and did an outreach in their neighborhood that they've been thinking about for some time. They've had a desire in their heart to reach their neighbors. Solomon's been using BlessEveryHome.com for some time. He's a board member at Love KC. So these things that we talk about here are not new to him in any way at all, but they wanted to embody that, to model it in a way that was maybe a deeper step than they had before. And I invited Solomon to come on this podcast and tell us about that story and some of the things that they did to invite their neighbors. And then most of all, Solomon, how did it go?
Well, Gary, thank you very much for having me. And it's a privilege to be serving at your board as well. One thing I would like to emphasize is it has been always on our heart of hospitality, myself and my wife, Tigst. And during the COVID season, we had the privilege and the opportunity to serve many other families by delivering meal and making it a little bit adventurous, because it's mostly we cook some Ethiopian food. So in that opportunity, either we will pray if it is everyone is comfortable by getting closer to them, or by just deliver it on driveways and say hello and kind of encouraging. And that has been a beautiful picture.
That's wonderful, Solomon. I didn't even know that part of the story.
Well, God has been really nudging us about 7 months ago to use our time and kind of encourage people. The season wasn't that encouraging. So what we thought is, okay, how about we will deliver the Ethiopian food, get your family together and just experience it, something different. And with that, we have been really more blessed than the people who have gotten the food. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you invited my wife, Belinda, and we enjoyed the food. It was awesome.
Well, it was an honor and a joy to see also your grandkids really fascinated about that food. And
I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, just the engagement and just feel it like, family or reunion kind of.
When we were going to your house, Solomon, they call us Nana and Papa. Like Nana and Papa, we don't want to go to someone's house we don't know. And we said, well, they're our friends. We really like them. You'll like them too. And, they finally got there. When they got out, they immediately
connected.
Happy. Yeah. Took them over to the backyard to meet with some more kids, and they started playing. And by the time we were ready to leave, they didn't want to leave.
Well, that is wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. So with that idea, because of the COVID, we just moved right when the COVID hit, and we couldn't see anyone. Everybody was isolated. So as things went by, we thought, okay, we need to invite our neighbors that we don't even know them. And I was honestly, I don't know how people will react, but I feel like it's time. So I could see really great responses from our neighborhood. And as I invited them, they were welcoming it and they say, yes, we will join you. And the funny part is, Gary, most of them are new neighbors that have never seen one another.
Wow.
Yeah, as we saw them, in our garage, sitting, say, "Hey, I'm living in that, yellow house, blue house," and I was just watching. God, this is who we are. I mean, this is who we are. We are created for relationship, a community.
Absolutely.
So it was a pleasant to see. So, bless every home has been a great resource for us to pray for our neighborhood as well. So that has to do a lot also with the Love KC and that initiative that really prompted us even more to be bolder in what we do, where we live, care, share, as the opportunity opened up. Yeah,
that's great. Well, the fact that you know your neighbors' names because you're getting your daily 5 to pray for. It seems like it gives us a little more confidence sometimes. Like we might not tell them we know their name, but the fact that we do know the name of the person who lives in that house or we prayer walk, it gives us a little more confidence that when we invite them, the Spirit is going before us to prepare their hearts. And I think that helps us as we think about the nervousness that we typically have before we reach out to do something we've not done before. Well,
not only that, it gives us a confidence of, learning it instantly the next time we see them,
Right.
I identify a person, and that gives you just another layer of, if you're a person who's forgetting names, there you can kind of refresh.
Right. In fact, you can even go into their tab, the list tab, look up their name, and write some notes in the note section, and it'll help you remember next time. If you remember the names of their kids or the names of their dog or things like that, it'll help you the next time.
It's a fascinating thing. Well, the story of this, as we invited our neighborhood, and the result was just heart touching. My neighbor came. Well, one of the stories. She has 2 boys across the road who are really energetic, and they've been always by themselves. And this opportunity that we opened the door, and they were able to get another boys their ages to play together.
Oh, nice.
But when she came from work one evening, those 2 boys were playing at her backyard with her kiddos. And that has really made her to come to my house. And she said, "You know what? Thank you for opening the door. Here's what I experienced." And I said, "Well, to God glory, what's happening?" And that's one of the story out of this invitation we made.
Yeah. Tell the listeners a little bit about what you and Tigst had to do when you thought of, okay, if we're going to have the neighbors over, what do we need to do to our garage to make it more of a gathering place? What'd you do in your backyard so that kids would have something to do? Because you put some thought into this.
Well, Gary, that has also to do with how I was brought up and how passionate I am about the children. And the children are at the center of what we do as an organization. Right. But what we did is just prepare with excitement to make it as much as fun for everybody, and put some valuable nets and some other activities around. Right. But then after inviting, the next week, what we did is we said, hey, this would be a good idea having a ping pong table in the garage. Since we cleared it out, and I said, this is perfectly working. And the response was really great. I mean, we had the kiddos came and start playing, but we also start engaging as a community. Parents are around, hang out, and that will open up more conversation and to know one another.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed, even though that I didn't know your neighbors, I noticed that they stayed around quite a while. Like, I really wondered when I got there, I was a little late. And I wondered if I might be getting there about the time that they were leaving, because I was afraid that when people don't know each other, sometimes they're hesitant to stay very long. And yet they acted like they didn't want to leave. I mean, people stayed around for a good hour and a half or more.
Or more than that. About 2.5 hours. And not only staying, but just the interaction, the joy in their face will tell you that it was, something we all needed. We all wanted to have that relationship built as neighbors. Yeah.
Well, and your timing was perfect, Solomon, because COVID was just ending. It hasn't completely ended, but the restrictions were lessening. And so people really wanted to get out and see other people. And you caught the timing of that perfectly.
Well, that's so true. And but the things, when we organized days, the weather wasn't nice as well on those weeks, and we were just praying, oh God, give us this time to be clear. So the only Saturday in that week was that's somehow reasonably, a good weather we had.
Oh, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Like 70 degrees. And
yeah,
it was really good. Well, Solomon, take us back a little bit, because I want to maybe go back a little bit to more of your the origin story. You've been living online, living on mission. Excuse me, online too, but on mission ever since I met you. And one of the first things I ever thought about when I met you was how that here you are, a busy man with a family and a career, and yet you started this not-for-profit, A Bright Future for Kids, and you have it in your heart. You're giving so much volunteer time and coalescing other people to join you in this project to support kids in Ethiopia. I want to hear about that. So be sure our listeners know about what you're doing. But how did you get to the place where that was such a core part of your life? Because I think that's where we want to all go, beyond just moving to say we're going to pray, care, share for our neighbors. But how do we give our life to, leading others to Jesus?
Yeah.
What's your origin story there?
Well, to those who don't know me, I was born and raised in Ethiopia, and with a single mom who has to take care of about 9 kids, and a tough time. And I was on and off a street kid, and with that also there are some dysfunctionality in that time of period. But one thing what's really stuck into my heart is as I saw my 2 years baby sister passing away, and I was physically present in that moment, and that moment has pivoted my way of thinking.
Wow.
Kind of drove me into a purpose of loving children, and probably initially it was more of a insecurity about children, insecurity about life. But then I saw that God has been really preparing me for this moment to the point that he was orchestrated. At some point, I was myself an adopted kid from a German missionaries who have really mentored me. And honestly, to say that I would have not been where am I at in my spiritual life, as well as where am I at as a person, had it not been for them. So that tells me that God has been all the time, orchestrating it to the point as I got here. God has called me back to my villages, called me back to where I came from. So, and of course, that was an indication of being surrounded with people like you and many Kansas Cityans have joined us in many ways. So that's how the background of it. And we've been supporting multiple single parents, those in Ethiopia and Kenya. And children shouldn't be thinking about food when they go to school, shouldn't be thinking about school fee or school supplies.
Right.
And you can imagine what these parents are going through seeing that happening. And it affects us all what they do holistically. And I'm just, obeying God to what He's called me and what He wants me to do. So
you're a beautiful example of His love. I always think of the scriptures that talk to us about being the hands and feet of Jesus. And I believe that you and your team are doing that. Remind me of, how did you get to Germany, though? One of the first times that I really began to tune into who you are and what you're about, you actually had a photo album with you, and you were showing pictures of your parents. And I was trying to put Ethiopia and Germany and the U.S. together without having a conversation, because I didn't have that ability at that moment in time. But I couldn't connect the dots in my own mind.
Okay, here's Dr. Schmidt-Lichner and his family were a missionary who came to Ethiopia as a optician's doctor.
Okay.
And they've been working in one of the hospital in our area. And the first day they arrived in Ethiopia, my mom was looking for a job. My mom used to work as a maid, and that's what she has been doing. Okay. So their paths intersected exactly when they arrived to that building, and my mom was right there. And from there, we've been divine. Divine. And from there, for about 9 years of their stay, my mom was there. Okay. The amazing thing is God has provided this family for the sake of our family, which has been struggling. And they have been my parents ever since. And as I had an opportunity for education abroad, my connection continued with them. And at some point, they invited me to stay with them. And that's how I end up to be in Germany. So Germany is the second home for me as well.
Yes. Then how did you get to the U.S.?
Well, I was in a date with one girl from Kansas City, and that's how I end up to be in Kansas City. So
that's awesome.
It's always life leads you into this. So here we are over 17 years with 2 kids, Jonathan being 14 and Leah is 11. And I love Casey. I love Kansas City. And
so was that young woman Tigst, or was that another? That was a girl before.
Initially another girl. It was another girl, but that happened.
And Tigst says thank you.
Exactly. And I'm sometimes I just say, hey, say thank you. Yes.
That's awesome.
I
don't think Tigst would mind if you told a little bit about what she just had a big day here. Can you tell about that?
Yeah. Well, just generally without Tigst, I would have not done any of these things. Tigst is a tiny girl but a mighty heart.
And she has a gift of hospitality.
Oh, yes. And with this, as we open our garage and for the kiddos to come to play ping pong, and every evening when she comes from work, she sits deliberately sitting outside and open garage for them to come. And the kids are coming, and not only the kids, but also the parents, and give us such a pleasant time. Yes. And that makes me even to, God is fulfilling something that He has been building in us, and to give it back And one thing always my wife used to say is, before we moved to this house, I wish we had a little bit of space. I wish we had a little bit of space. And we were on the same page, but God has just miraculously provided us this place. And we love it that it's serving center. And we would love to continue communicating with our neighbors to the point maybe from sharing into, scripture sharing, sitting together and study a Bible. And I think that would be the next prayer we do pray for.
Yeah. And maybe some of those Discovery Bible studies where you're basically having them restate what the scripture says to them, they can put it in their own words.
Yeah.
And then from there, what does it mean? And how would you apply it? And just the kind of the simplicity of being able to get them into God's word.
Well, the things, many of our neighbors, we reflected here and there about, our faith and the journey we have. Some of our in faith, some of our not. So we try to be the salt and light, whatever God is leading us. And my wife said, how about we will do this every month, like opening the door and then invite people. And there is another idea common to us.
Yeah, for sure.
We would continue, bring that hospitality gift we have for people to enjoy it, but also to reflect him only. So that's our ultimate goal.
So do you think that people who can do this, if they don't serve Ethiopian food?
Well, this time what we offered is we will provide Ethiopian food, but we will also have a potluck opportunity that everybody will, bring something that we would like to experience as well. So it's kind of give freedom of everyone to be part of it. Right. And that will make it a more genuine relationship. And we already named our neighborhood based street name Alden. So the Aldens are we.
Aldens. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a person who's listening and they kind of wonder, can I really do this? If I tried it, would people come? What would you say to them?
You know what? Not only can I do it, but this is something we do. This is something we should be, do where we live, work, and play.
Yeah.
So, very simple thing is just them to go to Love KC and get engaged and make it really in a tangible way to start praying for the community. And then that will nudge them to the next level of relationship. Like you mentioned it, because the confidence is, if you are in my street, you will see Solomon Dabe. So, me by name, that makes it even more appealing to talk to one another. So I would encourage everyone to experience that. With that, we also grow. We're also growing in our relationship. And that's the one of the command have been given is to just love the neighbors. Right. So there is a better way to love neighbors, just simple ways of saying hello and then continue, shining around and then invite them to whichever meal you have. And there is nothing better than breaking bread together. So
absolutely. Yeah. So if someone's listening and they don't know what Love KC is, let me just say that lovekc.net is where you can find resources to help you to live your faith with confidence and then know what to say to your friends to lead them to Jesus. So there are resources there such as 30 days of devotions that focus on how to love your neighbors. There's a discipleship guide to help you grow in your own faith. There is a book that's called A Field Guide for Loving Your Neighbors. It just gives kind of the basics. All of those resources and more are available there. And then there are these podcasts that you can find on Love KC Today. You might be watching it live, or you might be listening on iTunes or Google Play, one of the other formats that we have. But if you're in one format and you don't know about the other, you're just on the website, but you don't know about the Blessed Podcast or Love KC Today Facebook page, then we want you to know that and help you find all the resources so that we can equip you. That's why we exist, is to see you live a pray, care, share lifestyle. And what we find when people do that is that not only do they grow, but they begin to be able to be that light to their neighbors. And people want to know why. Why do you care the way that you do? Why do you seem so loving? What do you have that I don't have, et cetera? And we want to love so well that people want to be a part of our family, the family of God.
Yeah.
So Solomon, as we think about the future, and we think about the fact that you're a board member at Love KC, one of the things that we pray is that every neighborhood in our city would be adopted by someone just like you. And right now there are at least 3,035 neighborhoods adopted in Kansas City. And a neighborhood typically will have anywhere from 40 people, maybe up to 200 or so. And then that's a really strong, good number. We're growing at 50 a month on average.
Yeah.
But there's about 21,000 neighborhoods in Kansas City, so we have a long way to go.
Well, I would say that, this makes it very easy for people to get engaged and just have that easy way of communicating with their neighborhood. And initially, we were just a little bit concerned, but because we have this, we have been part of Love KC and the platforms we have, it really helped us a lot. So I would encourage everyone to get engaged into it.
You knew you weren't the first one to try this. And evidently the other people lived, because you still know them. They didn't die trying to be a good neighbor.
Yeah. No, this is great.
Thanks for joining us today on the Blessed Podcast, Solomon. So glad that you and Tigst are modeling the way that the Bible tells us to love God and love our neighbors.
Well, thank you for having me, Gary. As always, it is a joy to be with you.
And if you're listening today and you want to know how to use blesseveryhome.com, the website that Solomon is talking about, all you have to do is you can get it on the App Store from Apple or Google Play. Either way, it's Android or iOS. And then when you put your name and address in, so go to the website, put your name and address in, and then it'll send you an email that wants to make sure that you're really who you say you are, to confirm. So you confirm that. If you don't see the confirmation email, it might have gone to your spam. So check that out, because usually it'll come within like 30 seconds. But once you confirm, then it'll give you your neighborhood and it'll show you your 40 closest neighbors. And when you see them, they'll all be gray. All the names over them will each one be gray. And then every day you'll receive an email that gives you your 5 neighbor names for which to pray. And it literally walks you around your neighborhood as you pray. And you can pray for all of your neighbors in a little over a week if you're praying every day of the week. As you get to know them, then you can click on the top of their name and you can change the gray to red, which means I'm praying for you. And then but you don't actually know them. And then once you meet them, like Solomon's met his neighbors now, you can go click on them again and they'll turn yellow, and where you know that you have a caring relationship with them. And then as Solomon shares his story or the story of Jesus, he's going to click green. And so the pray, care, share lifestyle now is happening. And then Solomon can go to his neighborhood and see this combination of red, yellow, green. And if they come to Christ, or you know that they're a follower of Christ, you'll have them be blue. And Solomon gets kind of like a dashboard that shows him how many of his are red, how many are yellow, how many are green, how many are blue. And what all of us want to do is see our reds turn into yellows and our yellows turn into greens and our greens turn into blues. One that I've had the privilege of leading 5 of our neighbors to Jesus. not overnight. We've been in our neighborhood for 20 years, so it's the long play. But as people get to know you, none of these were just through us preaching at anybody. We're just talking, and people are asking questions and wondering. I remember sitting down with one of my neighbors who was telling me that he didn't believe, but his wife was bugging him to death. And so he said, I have to understand what she's talking about. And so I thought I'd ask you. And I was able to lead him to Christ. And so, yeah, there's just, we've been amazed at how people actually have asked us. It wasn't like we had to force anything on anyone, and we didn't try. But we did pray, we did care, we did share when we got opportunity, and then God used that. So yeah. I'm confident God can use you too.
Yeah. And also, to make it simple, there is a guidance of everyday scripture into its time. True. If you think about what am I going to pray for them, there are beautiful things that can be prayed for. So, yeah, that's a really great place.
Yeah. Well, Solomon, thank you so much. This has been delightful. I think you've inspired people, and you've given them a lot to think about. You've given me a lot to think about. I need to go clean my garage so I can put a ping pong table in my garage.
Oh boy, it is our honor and privilege to be to the places to be being served, but now be able to serve and glorify God in every walk we walk. So.
Very good. Well, thank you. Have a great day. And for those of you who are listening, I just encourage you to, if you're listening, share from Love KC today. You can take this particular podcast and share it with friends. Or if you're on the iTunes, you can like it, and then you can subscribe. And then whenever podcasts like this come out, you'll get the next one right on cue. So go join Jesus where he's already at work, where you live, learn, work, and play. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Solomon.
Thanks for joining in today for the Bless podcast. People often ask, what do the letters stand for in Bless? We like to think of Bless as a lifestyle where we B, begin with prayer, L, listen to God and to others, E, eat together, S, serve, and S, story, sharing your story and the story of Jesus. We not only pray that every home in America will be adopted by a disciple who lives this lifestyle, but also those that do will join their efforts to build missional communities where we live, learn, work, and play. If you haven't yet signed up for blesseveryhome.com, you can go there now. You can find more from host Gary Kendall, including ways to connect outside of this podcast at lovekc.net. Thank you for being a part of this Bless podcast today. We invite you to subscribe, to like it, share it, and write a review. Now, let's join Jesus where he is already at work.